informing our children, a lot of that just comes through our example. They see
That's true.
our efforts of trying to get to Mass or our own prayer life, the ways that we make meals for families in need, all of those kinds of things. And so we also can model for them. We think education, books, art, their nature, they're important. So we do these things. This is how we live our life.
Welcome to the Fairest Love podcast. Here we explore spiritual insights and practical strategies to help you cultivate a family life rooted in beautiful, self-giving love. Join us as we invite experts to share uplifting perspectives and actionable advice for navigating the joys and challenges of modern family dynamics.
Welcome back to the Fairest Love podcast. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Today I am joined with Amy Snell from the Charlotte Mason Educational Center. She's the co-founder and the academic director. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yes, it's great to be here and just have loved listening to the podcast and so many great guests. So it's a real honor.
The honor is all ours for sure. For the listeners who maybe are meeting you for the first time, do you want to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So, yes, my husband works in Princeton, New Jersey. So we live in the area. He is at the Witherspoon Institute and works part-time on campus. So part of our life is involved in the student life in Princeton. And then we have 5 children who we have homeschooled. 2 are in college. And then I have 2 high schoolers and a 10-year-old. And then I also, as you were saying, have been part of the Charlotte Mason Educational Center, the CMEC, for the last 10 years or so. So, yes.
Yeah, amazing.
Keeps me busy.
Yeah, you sound very busy. Can you share a little bit about the CMEC and what it is that you do?
Yes, well, the CMEC started around my dining room table with this idea that I wanted to homeschool at that point. The kids were little. This was about 20 years ago or so, maybe 16 years ago. I didn't want to do it alone. And I felt like if we had friends, it would provide community for the kids and for me as, a mom just starting out. So from there, it just grew and grew until we had there was like a few houses in the area were all doing the same curriculum on the same afternoons together. We called our group a Truth, Beauty, Goodness group. And then from there, more and more people wanted to use the curriculum, wanted to be part of the training and workshops that we offered. So we opened to the public in 2018. So yes.
Amazing. As a fellow, I guess it's a homeschooled alum, the community is a huge difference. And that's so great that you understood that you didn't want to do it alone because it can be a little lonely sometimes.
Yes. Well, and then now, we have over 6,000 students represented in the CMEC.
Wow.
We have families in all 50 states and over 20 countries. So not only do we help people start local communities, but then there is this feeling of that being part of a work that has really spread around the world.
I didn't know that you had expanded to outside of the country. That's amazing.
Yes, we love our international members. It can be harder for them to participate in our live meetings, though sometimes they will be on and say, oh, it's 5:30 in the morning. It's great. The kids are asleep. And it's easy for us to tune in at this point. But it's a lot of families, Americans who are in the military or doing some sort of diplomatic work around the world, but then also large groups in Australia, South Africa, the Philippines. So
that's really
that was
interesting.
Totally the unexpected part of our work, really.
Yeah. When you expanded more, is this recent? Or because I know that homeschooling has kind of increased during 2020 and a lot more people, it's just become way more widely accepted. When I was homeschooled, it was still kind of viewed as a little weird.
Yes.
But now it's really something that people are interested in, and it's very widely accepted. So I know that's just in the US. Is that the same going on outside of the US?
Yes, that's what we are realizing, and some countries are more friendly towards homeschooling than others, of course.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so I would love to know, how has, building a professional community, which is something that it sounds it's expanded all over for homeschoolers and for homeschooling moms, how has that served, your own personal need for connection and community in your motherhood journey? Because I think a lot of times we can be a little hyper independent and think, oh, I can do it. This isn't that necessary. I just need to make sure that my kids are homeschooled. But why is that connection, that community so important?
Yes, I just as I was doing more research into Charlotte Mason's philosophy, her curriculum, and beginning to write more and more materials to use from with my own family, I just felt that there were others that could benefit from that work that I was doing. And then that it's more and more there, God brought women who had so many different talents and interests into my life and really added and contributed so much to our curriculum and resources. So that was one aspect that was so enriching, to find other women who had the same passion, but different talents and different training, educational background. And so to be able to learn from them, and then the work that we now do in the CMEC, to have such a great team of working mothers, and they're all just so enjoyable. I admire each of them so much. But then in the larger kind of vision of homeschooling, trying to help families start local communities and then providing an online community as well, it's important, I think, that we want to have this outward look for our family, that the work that we're doing to build our family culture really is to bless the world in some way. And we want our children to be able to see that their education has a larger purpose. And it isn't just for their own self culture, it's for the world. And that was really one of Mason's big, always that education should be to build these magnanimous citizens. And so I think in coming together in a community, it really helps to have them be able to practice that in small
Yeah.
ways as well. So, yeah, and can contribute to, I think, the overall good of local community, rather than, home life is so rich. I have lots to say about the importance
Yeah.
of building home, but being also able to have time with friends is so important too.
No, for sure. And I think that you're so right that, we are supposed to go out in the world. I think a lot of times we forget that, in the day to day when the kids are little, we look at these cute little babies, but then suddenly, one day those little babies are going to have to go out into the world and share their talents and share the good news of just the gospel and like be a witness. So, yeah, that's very important. I wanted to touch on two things. First, Charlotte Mason, maybe for the listeners who are, this is great, but who is Charlotte Mason?
Yes. So Charlotte Mason was a British educator. She wrote 6 volumes of her around her philosophy of education. So she died in 1923. But before at that point, there were 80,000 students that were enrolled either in the Charlotte Mason schools or homeschools. And
Okay.
so she started by training governesses
Mm,
with her methods. And then from there, more and more families got involved, and they started together what was called the Parents National Education Union.
okay.
And they did work to develop a curriculum. So that's what we have based our curriculum off of, just bringing it into a modern context
That's
for use
amazing.
today. Yeah.
That's amazing. I really liked what you kind of touched on about meeting people of different talents and learning from them. And I think, a lot of your circles and communities built around like shared loves. So, like art or nature. But I really like how you emphasize the importance of moms continuing to learn, but then also
Mhm.
connecting over hobbies. Why do you think it is so important that moms use their own hobbies or find shared interests in other things so that they can continue to learn, themselves, but then also forge deeper friendships?
Yes, when we come together and study a painting, together. It's really neat to see and have this bond of we've given our attention to this beautiful thing, and then we've narrated it and shared our thoughts. And we have then a connection with each other over realizing that this person next to me was looking at the same painting and they saw such different things and opened my eye.
Mhm.
And so, like, that's just, I think a wonderful example of when we can share learning together and doing together, that there is this way that then we get to just be together in a much more enriching way. And I love when friendships can get beyond a lot of the chit chat and
Yeah.
into deeper things, but sometimes the path is to have actually ideas to talk about,
Mhm.
meaningful things, rather
Yeah.
than just the um how are you getting your baby to sleep through the night and all of those things, and that's great too, but sometimes that can be so wearying, and it
Mhm.
really is nice to have to actually infuse your life with beauty and the handiwork and all kinds of things.
That's so true. And, it's like the airplane example that people always give about how, on an airplane, when they go through the emergency protocols and they say if you have a baby, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you put on your baby's oxygen mask. And so I think the same applies. And this is what I think you're saying too, is that you have to some extent, fill up your own cup in order to be able to give to your family and your children in that way. And sometimes it's that balance of, yeah, talking about motherhood things, but then something as simple as, a beautiful painting or just going on a walk. Those help kind of refresh your own soul as a mom and allow you to come at, the daily tasks of life with a fresh perspective.
Mhm. Yes, and I think we want to also informing our children, a lot of that just comes through our example. They see
That's true.
our efforts of trying to get to mass or our own prayer life, the ways that we make meals for families in needs, all of those kinds of things. And so we also can model for them. We think education, books, art,
Hmm.
their nature, they're important. So we do these things. This is how we live our life. And that includes mom and dad, not just this is something you do because it's school and, we're checking off a box.
For sure. Yeah, it's, children are sponges. They just pick up on everything. So you've been guiding families for a while. What is a common struggle that you see moms facing today?
Yes, I think there can be this isolation that so many moms feel, and that it seems like, oh, the easy way to deal with that isolation is either, I just will go back to work full time, so I'm not isolated in my house, or I'll like just, get online and be part of one more forum after another and having this kind of artificial world. And so that's where really trying to help people find that the CMEC provides an online community to help infuse people with everything they need to start a Charlotte Mason reading group or
Mm,
to a Truth Beauty Goodness group, a nature club, things like that. I think that would be the one. And that so often there also can be this sense of when we struggle and we're
yeah.
feeling overwhelmed and we're feeling anxiety to withdraw from our community. And that is where I can see, especially in the young moms of our group, where I will say, no, like just get you and your kids to co-op today, however you
Hmm.
can. And just, it will be so good for them to be able to go to class and be with their friends and for the moms to share with each other rather than thinking like, okay, I'm going to wait to participate till I get it all together.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
that's
I think
important.
that and then so often we can attempt to start family routines and rhythms, different habits for family life, and that they can start to derail. And so it's really this sense that to have a growth mindset that you don't, with being a mom, you really learn as you go. the door opens before you,
Mhm.
and the path becomes more clear. And so it's okay to, beginning with homeschooling, but mothering too, with this feeling that you don't know what's ahead, and you don't know everything you need to know yet, but you can grow. And that really life is just this series of beginning and beginning again and again
Mhm.
and trying again, and not like falling into despair or cynicism about that. Just throwing up your hands and saying, I'm a hot mess. This is just who I am. I'll always be
Yeah.
this way. No, like every time you begin again, you have that experience from the past, insight into yourself. And so really we just need a lot of, I think, good humor about, and humility of, like, I thought this was going to be the be all and end all chore chart,
Mhm.
and like, all right,
Yeah.
my family, we're not going to do the chore chart, but we are going to find a way to make life a little smooth and easier in handling the never ending dishes and laundry
Exactly.
and things.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's so important to, have that growth mindset because I think that, and maybe I don't know if you've noticed this just having worked with, different moms and just seeing how our world's shifting. But I feel like comparison, I mean, especially for women, is such an easy trap to fall into because we look at, the mom over there and she's got it together. And, so and so threw a tantrum about eating breakfast out of the purple bowl this morning. And so, do you think that it's gotten harder for women to balance the everyday tasks of motherhood and life and homemaking with the rise of social media because there's just so much information being thrown at people? Or do you think that it's like inspired people to grow? I'm very curious about your answer because I feel like it's a balance of both depending on your mindset as an individual, but I would love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there can be so many ways that in social media we can get glimpses of the ways other people organize their homes, how they do those things, and that can be really wonderful. The thing about real life friends that we can compare ourselves to is we hope we have really admirable friends that we want to be like and have things that they're better at us, and that inspires us. Or we can just be happy that they're really good at making sourdough bread or whatever it is that they do better than us, but we can see them in a full picture. So we
Mhm.
know that they have these strengths, but they're also struggling in this area. That actually helps us to admire the things that they struggle with, help us to admire that then they can still, despite having these struggles, they accomplish these things. And
Yeah.
so that's where I worry, is when we only have this one dimensional view of the women we meet online. And it's not even, that's just the way it's going to be, right? That
Mhm.
we have the square of the Instagram picture, and that's all we have. We don't have that, the third dimension. So
Mhm.
I think trying to keep that desire we have, that this natural way to compare so that we can learn and grow, is the way a human is made, but to see a full picture.
Yeah.
And then, to look for confidence is not really in our parenting and our educating of our children. Our confidence comes because we know we turn to the Holy Spirit. We turn to our Lady for direction, and that they are going to be doing the work in our children's hearts.
Mhm.
And even in this education, Mason had, her, what she called her great recognition when she went to Florence and saw this painting at the church here, that is Santa Maria Novella, where you can see the dove of the Holy Spirit is over the Mary and the men, the apostles at Pentecost, but under that is all the people represented in for all fields of knowledge. And so that the Holy Spirit is the divine teacher. So it can seem like, people will say, how do you think you are going to be able to educate your children, and from kindergarten through 12th grade, and they'll be prepared? And to really think, well, at the end of the day, it is I prepare our schedule. I make sure we have the books,
Mhm.
and the supplies we need. And then it's the child with the great books, the great things, and the work of the Holy Spirit.
For sure. Yeah, the work of the Holy Spirit's very important. It's a very key point of the whole process. So you have 2 graduates, I believe, and the other 3 are still, you're still homeschooling them. What advice would you give to the mom who's approaching graduation for her kids, and then the mom who is with the littles and knows that graduation is going to come at some point, but I would love to know your thoughts or advice for those 2 mothers.
Yes, Charlotte Mason has this quote where she talks about how, we put forth these small efforts and in the end it exceeds our expectations. And I think of the line that I heard is a Spanish quote that St. Jose Maria would say, that dream and your dreams will fall short. And really, I think that has been the story for our family's life, that we try to be faithful to these small everyday things that we're asked to do, and see life as this adventure that we're called upon, and that then faced any normal circumstance, faced with this like sense of adventure and seeing where it will take us. Really, we would never have been able to imagine the things our kids are interested in, the things that as they're graduating and getting to experience and do. And then for us, of all of the people we've been able to meet, places we've been able to speak and share and learn from. So really, it is just in trying to pick up and do those daily tasks and be faithful in small ways. Really, I wouldn't have imagined that it makes a difference. And to see then, we would struggle so much with so many of our habits, that they really are part of the children's life and how good they are at life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so rewarding.
I bet. Oh, I love that. So you have a very busy, schedule. You've got your, homemaking, you're running the CMC, EC, you're, homeschooling your own children. How do you reset and rest and rejuvenate, your own spirit when you have a day where just you feel like everything's going wrong?
Mhm. Well, I definitely think the busier the day is, or the more challenging the day is, it's like more and more why we need this life of prayer. And if I know, like, okay, this is a day where I'm going to have one meeting after the next, or, in this
Yeah.
podcast and things like that, then it's like, I think a human way would be to think like, oh, well, I probably shouldn't go to mass today, or I should just, start getting right to work. And yet that time really does multiply when you have that sense of peace and can then, have direction on where to do your work. But when days go awry, I think that it really is helpful to go back to some of these like pillars of what for our children and ourselves, that is everyone right now getting enough sleep, enough good nourishment, are we getting in good exercise? Maybe we just need to get out of the house. I really love just trying to do like a 10-minute reset. Sometimes I can only do like my timer for 4 minutes. Like, what could I accomplish in this kitchen just for 4 minutes, Amy? And
Yeah.
it just feels so good like I unloaded the dishwasher. It is now empty. And sure enough, it'll be filled again. Just like it puts things back in the place of my mind to like walk around and restore a room or something like that. So I also, with little ones, have found like, all right, let's have a uh, bubble bath in the middle of the day, and you can have a bowl of Cheerios and a little snack, and they can play, and they're contained in the bathtub, and I can just, sit back. That was when 3 kids, 3 and under, we would
Yeah.
have like, all right, we usually do baths at bedtime, and we're going to do a bath at 11 a.m. So you will just, and they're so happy splashing and playing in the tub. And but there's
Aw,
the same way if you can get outside, and we love to play. The kids always, I just feel like they're happy with water. So getting to
true.
our creek and they can play there.
Yeah. Yeah, the outside does wonders for kids' moods. I think there's a lack of exposure to nature, and so I think it is important that young children and older children get outside for at least some part of the day. But I also really liked what you said about just getting the small tasks done. I don't know if you're a list person, but I am very much a list person. And sometimes even writing as a to-do, write the list and then being able to check
Yes.
that off
Yeah.
does wonders for the rest of the day.
I know. I always say I love to plan when I'm going to plan.
Exactly. This has been a great conversation. One last question for a mother who feels isolated right now and she really likes, what she's hearing and she understands she has the need for community. What is the first small step that you would suggest she take for her to find her people?
Oh, that's a great question. And, I think you can hear about, a co op like mine that has 25 women in it, or a book club that we've been meeting for years. And it makes you afraid to just realize, like, but it can really just start small. And having just, two other families that you meet with can really be enough for of that social interaction for moms and kids. And so I think a great place to start is inviting a few friends to meet at some sort of natural area where you could do a little nature study time, and then the kids can play and the moms could have a conversation. I always say, I recommend reading Charlotte Mason's Home Education as a place to start, but there's the whole section on outdoor life for children. And
Mm.
what we have found in our group is that sometimes moms can be so busy that it seems hard to even read a book at home and come and discuss it. So we really loved having, like, just reading it aloud together and stopping and being able to talk about whether it's an article or a book. And that can be really helpful. Then nobody has to prepare ahead of time or anything, but being able to, yes, you're going to have interruptions of the child who falls and you need to be able to see everybody, but trying to
Yeah.
have at those times where you gather still some sort of discussion as
Yes.
well can be great. And then from there we think, okay, well, let's try to meet one night a month or 6 times a year or something like that for a reading group. And usually then once it starts and friends tell friends, it gets to be very quickly like the problem is there's too many and you have to break into smaller
Smaller
groups.
groups. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all your knowledge. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And Amy, where can people find you?
Yes. Well, we are the CMEC is the CMEC.org. And we're also on Instagram. And then my own Instagram, my private Instagram is at Learning How to Live CM.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for listening to the Fairest Love podcast. We will see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fairest Love podcast. In 2026, we continue to share the devotion to Mary, Mother of Fairest Love. If you like what you heard on today's show, please visit our website at fairestlovefamilyproject.org, where you can find additional podcasts and other resources for families. Be sure to also check us out on social media at Fairest Love Project. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on an episode soon.